our experience as first degrees for me was one of the most important things. And I really always think about this. Yes, I went through the three initiations. Yes, I'm a third degree. I'm still a first degree. I still have that experience. And sometimes people forget about this, that you are still a first degree. And every time that you go and you initiate another person, you are going to go through that again, which is the teachings of the first degree. And really the biggest teachers and the teachers of the third degree are the first degrees.
Right, right. Because they bring what freshness and that excitement and that new curiosity back at the beginning. And if you've done it for years, you can sometimes forget that first excitement and those butterflies. And it's very inspiring to see the new little baby witches coming in the first degrees and their eagerness and their love and purity in a lot of cases. I worked with young people in my previous coven in New Orleans. I worked with some really young people, really sweet people, and very sincere. And they're just their innocence and sincerity was so beautiful to see.
When we go through the first degree, and it depends on what teacher you have. I mean, the teacher makes all the difference, really. People that went through their first degree training and their first degree, and then suddenly they realize they don't really have what they really need. And they go out of that coven and then they ask to go into another coven. But it's really something that it's not linear. I think it depends on the teacher. But I remember when I was a first degree, I was always very inquisitive, always had a lot of questions about things. Well, why is that in the West? I mean, why is that in the why do we do that with a pentagram? I mean, do we have to do all of those things that you ask at the time? And you're thinking, oh my goodness, yes. Okay. And the teacher has to think about this because sometimes you have questions from your students that surprise you, they strike you and shock you sometimes, that you have to think about. And this is why they are the teachers, because you will be presented with challenges of your own kind. And I've seen this and this. What does that mean? Or we really, again, we have to set this up first. So when people are saying, well, that's beyond your degree, or that's not yet, I can't talk about that, or you shouldn't be doing that, or you shouldn't be doing this, or you can't touch that tool, or you can't do this and that. That's very controlling. And we don't have that. In Alexandrian tradition, we are known for our openness with first degrees. They do touch everything. They actually can initiate others with the supervision of the third. But this is the thing: the first degree in the Alexandrian tradition really puts their hand on the clay, you know, totally, and really mold that, which will be their own experience through the training of the first degree. It is very logistic, it's very practical, it's all the things that the protocol is very important as well, I think. It's the practical things, it's the casting of the circle, it's the calling of the quarters, it's the invocations, it's the consecrations. All of those things are very important to master during this first degree, and minimum 3 years, right? Minimum 3 years. 3 wheels of the year. I took hours and hours and hours trying to get the right pentagram, the right name, and the right position where and correspondence and casting and casting and casting, so then I could be best and the strongest.
It's
Circle.
so multifaceted. You know, as an artist, I love the idea of the beautiful, elegant temple, the robes, the incense, the scenery in the temple room. You know, some people have it in a private room that is always the temple. Some people convert another room temporarily on ritual night to the temple. But for me, and this is true of my first coven in New Orleans, it was a beautiful temple with beautiful colors and art and statuary and things. and a tall ceiling in a beautiful space. And that meant a lot to me aesthetically because it was beautiful to me and elegant. And I was excited to be in the space of it. That was one experience that was very consistent was the beauty. And I'm certainly striving in my own temple at my own home to have this kind of really beautiful scenery and art and fabric and space so that I am extremely overwhelmed by the luxury and the beauty of the space. But on the other side, every student's wired differently, their brain, their psyche, we're all different. So, and it depends what you bring into the tradition. If you've studied a lot of other things, it's very difficult not to compare and contrast. If you're more of an academic brain, you want to memorize and get it right and learn it properly. And some people are very physical learners. They just practice over and over or watch it done. They don't really want to read a lot. They want to watch and try. I think that's also very valid. So I came into it more intellectually and I struggled probably a bit more because of that. I wanted all of it to make sense. I wanted to see the patterns. I wanted to build the structure right away. I did also have a lot of questions. What I also learned experientially, which was again so good for me, was the experience of the ritual. Stop thinking, Ellie. Start being.
That's a very good point.
Be in it. Don't analyze. Be in it. Feel it.
Yes.
Experience it psychically. Allow that space to be built inside of me so that I can take that with me. Now we learn to do this. We can do an entire ritual in our mind. It visual, auditory, smell. I can do entire ritual in my mind because I have that much experience in the physical world of it.
I had a priestess once that I told her that would be better if she would know the ritual invocation by heart because it's so much better when you have that. And you have to understand I'm coming from professional theater, and of course if I had the voice and I had the sense of space and I had the beauty of the altar and all of that, was for me was very important. And of course, knowing theater, meaning in ritual has to be absolute. So everything has to be meaningful. Everything has to have an intention. All of those things were very clear to me since the beginning because of my training as a classic actor. I had a priestess once that I said to her, I'm really very adamant about memorizing things because when you have a paper in your hand, you can't really be free to feel and to develop yourself into and to surrender to the experience. But anyway, so she didn't for several reasons. She didn't have the opportunity to memorize it. And I could see it in ritual. So she'd go to ritual and I could see immediately that she wouldn't know. And I just said to her, just invoke. The important thing is the intention of invocation. You can be saying uh, gibberish. It doesn't really matter if the intention is there. That is what really is important. So that's why I said to her, just invoke. Invoke with what you know. If it is just one word, just repeat that one word over and over and over again and just call the God. This is very important because it really is teaching intention and teaching focus. One of the most remarkable teachings that I received was always expect the unexpected. And this is really very true. So we don't know. Sometimes we have everything planned, and this is one of the things that it's an extraordinary lesson because as a first degree, you intend to do everything right, and everything has a structure. And as you said, look for the structure. But very quickly, we learn that the ritual doesn't really obey those rules because we are between the worlds. Sometimes there are other plans, really, that happened, and you have to adapt and you have to have that flexibility. This is why the training is so important. It's because I've learned very quickly that if I had the mastery of the tools, if I had the mastery of the circle, the basics of the circle, I could deal with any situation that was going to happen in that environment. So it really is very important that the first degree takes time in the first degree, and for me was very good to have that. And sometimes it doesn't matter if people come from 15 years prior. I mean, there is an understanding that it's a little bit accelerated, but you need that time. You need that time, you need that experience. Maturing your own experience is very important, I think.
Well, if you memorize and do really even memorize the rituals, it builds a confidence in a space that allows the other to come through magnificently. If you I find it hard to believe that someone doesn't have time to memorize. I mean, and we all do have our different memory abilities. Certainly when I was younger, I had a much better memory than I do now as an older, lovely older lady. But I I believe in it because it does create space when you're holding the paper and you're reading. It blocks something else from happening. You're staying in the mundane. There's just hard to get out of it when you're holding this piece of paper and you're reading. But again, the gods are tricky, and they come in and come down into the people and into the circle with you. They're stronger than us. So they're going to have fun with us sometimes, right?
I always say to people, pay attention because if you don't remember what you're going to say, even though you have memorized it and you know what you're supposed to be saying, pay attention to that because that means that something is happening and you're not paying attention.
Right. But you also adapt when you know it for sure, and let's say you've just forgotten a sentence, you know what the idea is there.
I think that the most important thing is to really stop. This happens in theater. I mean, of course,
Mhm.
there's this very interesting story of an actor that comes in and he's supposed to burn to burn a letter, and then the other actor comes in and says, "It smells like burned paper. What's going on?" And that was a line. And, one night, the actor didn't find the matches, so he ripped the paper instead of burning it, and then the other actor came in and says, "It smells like ripped up paper." So, you have to really not lose the purpose and not lose the intention, but but get through it, but also have the presence of mind and body to actually stop and say, okay, so what's going on here? Very quickly, analyzing the situation very quickly. You can only do that with experience, with years of experience, years and years and years of things happening to you that you think, oh, everything is planned. We're going to have a wonderful Sabbath. And then suddenly
Right.
no. So, and it was wonderful the same, but it wasn't really not what you have planned. What really made me think about why this is called an art,
Mhm.
it's really why is it called an art? It's because we have to master all of the basics so that we can then deal with anything and everything that is being thrown at us. And sometimes there are things that happen. And I love the fact that in the Alexandrian tradition, first degrees can do basically anything in circle. There's no limits for what they do, which is very important.
I think if I had it to do over, it's always interesting to reflect back and say,
Mhm.
"Oh, if I could have it a little bit different way, if I did it all over again." Because of my brain structure, I had a lot of anxiety in my first coven work because it was really successful, well-trained people, strongly dedicated, and I took it as intimidating. And I had a lot of anxiety. So I struggled to relax. That was good for me to try to get out of my own brain and to just experience the rituals, but at the same time, trying to hold the memorizing and the learning the ritual at the same time that I'm trying to psychically experience the ritual was very disconcerting for me. And if I had to do it over, if I could look back and say, "Now, Ellie, don't be so self-critical. Let's try to let's be in love with this too. Let's relax a little bit. It's okay to be yourself in front of the gods. You wanna be sincere. Yes, you wanna get the ritual right. Yes, you wanna know your lines so that you can relax more." But I always had this tension. I still do, some anxiety, some butterflies before I enter the temple. You're focused and there should be properly prepared before you go in. You should really have done all your psychic work, your physical cleanliness and your psychic cleanliness before you walk in there. But the art of it, the beauty of the space was really lovely. I loved the people. We follow a no socializing rule in the beginning so that you're not talking about temple and you're learning in a structured way. It's not just a free for all with everyone. You're not hanging out all the time. I appreciate that. I believe in that rule.
We learn. We're always learned. Learning never stops. Never
Mhm.
stops. And as long as the third degree is receiving first degrees to be trained and or to be initiated, neophytes, that's a lifetime of learning. And we are always learning. And regardless of, and I know that this is a cliche, everybody says this. Oh, I'm always learning. Even though I'm a third degree, I'm always learning. This is the thing why my teaching about third degrees, you don't really say that. It's really very important for people to understand that, and I've learned that later, much later, this about service to the circle.
Mm.
Higher the degree, the more a servant you become to the circle and to the gods. And this is very important because this was something that as a first degree, I was really not thinking about that. I was thinking about, oh, getting everything right, all of the logistics, all of the gestures, all of the words and the rhythms and it's a lot of things really to learn. And at the same time, to really use at the same time. So it's really not something that it's very, oh, you get this in 1 year in a day. I think that's an illusion. I think that you have to really practice, 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 practice.
What was your when you first initiated and you'd gone through your initiation ritual and then you go home? What was your first coven like? Did you meet weekly? Were there a lot of people in it? How did you like, I know you can't tell the details of it, but your feeling about stepping back in, were you anxious? Were you intellectual like I was, where you were trying to build the structure and get it all right? Did you get to experience it emotionally, psychically also?
I came into what I felt at the time, and it was really a very old um, group of people because they were the first people or part of the first people that were initiated in the United States. So, Alexandrian. So I was conscious that I was around people that were they have been practicing this for almost 30 years. They were really the nuclei of the Alexandrian tradition in America. So for me, it was really very important, and I felt that. I felt that particular uh, environment. So everybody knew what they were doing. They were doing that for a long time. So I always thought a little bit in secret that I had to be, better and better and better because they were good. And I didn't want them to be making mistakes or anything. So we really didn't had a schedule, which is very interesting. And then later I found out that London Coven didn't have like a very strict schedule. I think that Temple of the Mother had a more strict schedule, but I think that we didn't really had a strict schedule because we were very scattered, meaning the people were all over Massachusetts. So some people were very, very far away. Some people were from other places, not really very near us. So we met when we could, but 4 Sabbaths we did. We did all of the Sabbaths. So we at least the Sabbaths. Full moons, maybe once in a while. Don't forget that I'm coming into this group that has been part of very iconic books. For instance, A Voice in the Forest, Jamal de Fios's book, which is Conversations with the Spirits of Alexanders. And I'm coming into the forest where they actually wrote the book about. Uh, and so I'm experiencing all of this. I'm seeing all of these people that I read about in this book in real life. for me, this is like surreal. It's like I can't believe that I'm meeting with these people and they're actually doing circling with me. So I was very lucky, really very lucky to have been brought in into this group of people that are they were absolutely extraordinary and experienced and wise and really kind. At the time, this was very private, and I have many teachers, really, at that time. And I met all of these people that I've heard about in the history of the American Alexandrians. We are the oldest line in America. The Band of Grisili is actually the oldest line in America. And that was who brought in all of that from the UK. And I was trained by second generation, so I was just out of that coven that initiated everything. I was taught by somebody from that coven. So it was really interesting to come in. But I was like, oh my God, I'm part of the whole, this whole thing. I mean, it's like so I really that's what I felt. I felt that I had to be good.
I read Jamal Tafilsi's books early, and I never imagined I would ever meet him, but I have met him and dearly love him, and an honor to meet your heroes. And I had, I think, a little bit of the opposite. The coven I initiated into was new to the Alexandrian tradition, really quite brand new, giving it their all, super serious about it. But maybe part of the anxiety was I sensed that kind of I needed an older, more seasoned I needed to be in an older frying pan maybe.
Yeah, but I think
You learn and grow. There's no you have to start, so there's no judgment with that, but, yeah, and 11 years in, I'm 11 years into the tradition now. I've tried so hard to meet different Alexandrian priesthood and go to the group events and have conversations because I desperately seek all of the older people and the older wisdom. I'm excited to hear from them. I want to hear those 30-year stories and 40-year stories. So it came to the US in 74, 72. Alexandrian witchcraft came here.
71. Uh, 71. So this is Temple. This is London. The Coven in London of Alex and Maxine. They came from London 70, and then 71 they established the first coven in America, which was called Duban de Grisel Coven, and then they became the Duban de Grisel line because it was coming out of that coven, and that was the line of Alexandrian initiates in America for the longest time, and then other lines came in at that later, the later date in the 80s. There's another one that comes in. So there's a couple of things but that was the first one, and it came in 70. 71 was the date of foundation of the Gothic Coven in Boston.
How did we arrive at the migration to Temple of the Mother? I mean, I know the history of development of Maxine a little bit later, starting in the 70s, 74, I think she really started to work on her own in developing Temple of the Mother, which is inside of classic Alexandrian Wicca. It is. It's just on top of what she and Alex built together. How did that migrate to the US?
Well, that was with me and our opportunity to meet Maxine, and this was 2009. So this was very early. Yes, 2009. And so I met Maxine 2008, I think, and then uh, we got really. I really just got very, very fond of her immediately, and we talked and talked and talked, and I just got the opportunity to ask all of these questions that I had. She stayed in our home. I mean, we had a lot of time with her, and I had a lot of opportunity to ask a lot of questions, and she was very generous with her input, and she actually suggested a couple of corrections on what we were doing because when you go to another country and you have very limited time. I mean, at that time, we're talking about 1970, right? The tickets of the airplanes probably were very expensive for the people that were there, and especially because they were students of Boston University, so they didn't really have a lot of money, and so the training was done in a very interesting way because they had very limited time when they went to England and then coming back and all of that. So when that happens in different countries, things got lost a little bit in translation. Sometimes things get misunderstood, or you don't remember this or that, or you don't remember exactly how it's done, things like that. So things naturally they get a little bit blurry, and sometimes things are not exactly like they were. And then, of course, when I met Maxine. Maxine has been, I mean, this is 2009. So she went through all of the coven in London with Alex, all of the Temple of the Mother. So when she came and when I met her, she was totally well seasoned and in every way. And of course, so I got that advice, and correction on things that I thought also that were I felt that they were not really. So I started to readjust the practice that we had from the original De Crucial line and the Band Crucial coven and the teachings of that group. And so we realigned a little bit our practices, and we corrected and readjusted a lot of them to match what Maxine has taught us, and such various things that were corrected. And through the years, and I still am learning from her, but through the years, she had been generous enough to really, really, not only a friend, but a generous teacher that had realigned a lot of things that I have asked questions about. So that was when our practice became really aligned with the Temple of the Mother and what they were doing at the time, and her teachings directly. And then there was a very interesting situation. There was a priestess in London that came to our coven because there was no covens in London that were aligned with what we wanted to do. And so she was training with us. She came to our coven to practice, and she brought in also a lot of the knowledge with her as well. As she was going to be trained, she would bring the knowledge with her, and she shared that with us as well. So it was a mutual exchange. So it was profitable for both parties in terms of practice, and so it was really, really good. And it was a good opportunity for us to really build up on what we already had at the time and confirm a lot of other things in terms of practice, and in terms of, because Maxine would show her and then she would bring it to us. And so there was a lot of readjustments, of course. And then Kit, the contact always with Maxine, it really helped. So is it being egotistical to say that it was me? Because it was me. And with a collaboration of other people as well. But it was that priestess was really very helpful. And then, of course, Maxine was really helpful, of course. She's central on this.
I only received Temple of the Mother training because that was my opportunity, and I appreciate it, but I also know now many older Alexandrians that were initiated and worked with Alex and Maxine together, and their styles, there's some, like you said, there's a layering. I think of Maxine's work as deepening her own study and adding more and more. I call it classical ritual development, really. She certainly took it very deep philosophically and refined. She says that. She refined and worked with some other people in the London Coven. When I remember talking to her last summer, and I delicately said, when you and Alex separated and you were then working on your own, she said, "No, no, Ellie, he left me." But she was charming. She was charming and so generous and so loving. I want to say that she's just adorable, and honored to really know her in person also. But She said she didn't really she was just adrift a bit and lost, and then she said, "No, I'm going to continue to do this and refine this and make this fabulous." People came to her and said, "We can't stop. We can't stop. This is too important." And, she brought a lot more to it, which is just that's what I was exposed to, Temple of the Mother, and so it's wonderful to see all the different Alexandrians today. All the same, though, we all have it's a deep contents, all so similar, the same.
Yeah. Before that, I had endless Saturday religiously conversations with Maxine where she exchanged with me and shared with me very generously, shared with me teachings about things. And I had as I was going through my coven and teaching others, I was going back to her and say, can you what is this about? How do I and so she was always very available to and we had this relationship, which is I just said that to her very recently. Very interesting relationship that we have. Um, but it is what really brought in the teachings. I really didn't thought that it was Temple of the Mother at the time. I thought yeah, I was conscious of it, but I was not really labeling it. I was more interested in saying, okay, so this is Maxine's teaching rather than Temple of the Mother. But of course, we are conscious that that's what it was, and that helped me a lot. That helped me a lot in all of the degrees, really, because if I am who I am today, it's because of her, really, because of all the people before her, meaning all of the people of the Bene Gesserit, Morven and Pat and all of the people from the Bene Gesserit that helped me and that taught me, including Jamal was my first teacher. So he was the first one that really taught me how to cast a circle, how to call the quarters, all of those things. And then readjustments, of course, and all of this lifetime learning from Maxine, and I'm still learning from her.
Well, I appreciate you bringing Temple of the Mother and Maxine's teaching to the US because now I think we're really solidly here. There are many covens using that her teaching and her methodology. It's unified. I think we all know each other. We could reach out. We don't all know each other, but we know each other to some extent. We can reach out, ask a question, ask for refinement. It's been nothing but exciting because when you teach, you learn, and when we ask questions, we have to think about things again. And when we don't know something, we go above and ask and see what is the real authority. And
You came with very good training, and we must say that your training is coming from also Temple of the Mother via another person, but it is Temple of the Mother, and it is on that era. So what I got Coven in London, 1970, because that's the first thing that I got, and then readjustments, and then I got Maxine's teachings, still have, and the restructuring of the ritual practice and readjustment of ritual practice through her teachings. So I got both of those currents. You came through directly, Temple. I felt that I was very privileged to see the previous and then the evolution and then the refinement. So I know how things were done in time when Alex and Maxine were together in London, in the London Coven. And then I've learned what came after from Maxine's Coven and her refinement and her developments and her teachings. So it's really beautiful to see all of that road, and experience and have that taught. It was a privilege, I think,
yeah, a privilege. Oh, it's extremely unique.
Yeah.
Extremely unique in the Alexandrian world to have that perspective. And
Mm.
I love Temple of the Mother. It's right for me. I'm really glad I entered into that style as a new Alexandrian because it really works for me. The hermetics and the deeper ritual and the more philosophic, digging in is what I like so much. And I'm honored to be part of it and so much appreciate my teaching and training in the beginning, really high quality. And like I said, a beautiful temple, beautiful, sincere people. I love that. And it's growing. It's growing in different countries. It's expanding. There are really solid teachers and initiates in different places that are working collectively to make sure it all stays together and that we are creating great new priesthood. And I'm excited that there's some connection, there's some connectivity between us and places to go to ask our questions and talk about our experiences because I believe in it. It needs to be preserved and protected for the future. It's just such a solid system, such a rewarding system, and is so good if you take it seriously, so good for the individual personhood development. You're just going to if you do it right, take it seriously, you're gonna end up being a really fabulous person.
Well, we were talking the other day, and we kind of came up with this idea, which was a very interesting idea. We had this third degree meeting with several coven leaders from all over the world, Alexandrian coven leaders, and we had this idea about, and it's an idea that it's not new, but it's sometimes it's not often talked about. The further training for third degrees, which is when a third degree really feel that they need further training, meaning they want to experience other training from somewhere else, and or feels that they could benefit from further training, they will ask for further training, and that's okay. It's not really, and we came up with this idea. What we call it, to drink from an empty chalice, which is something that was done always in the Alexandrian tradition, which is really a training circle, that we call it a training circle. It's called, for us, it's called an empty chalice, but it comes from to drink from an empty chalice, which is the phrase that we use. And it's very interesting because, it was something that we put out recently on people that really wanted to receive further training, that we were willing to come together and to do gathering of sorts, and have that happening. So it's important for us to say this because I put it out in our private group on Facebook, but sometimes people don't really need to listen to that. So if you are interested in further training in the Alexandrian tradition, just reach out and we'll talk about it. But it's not that it's just not me or anybody else. It's just a group. It's a group effort. It's all together trying to experience that. And
I love that. I love that. Put me on the list. I love that because I do like community and I love communing and I want to hear the people's individual experiences, like asking you about your first stepping back in after your initiation into that seasoned old frying pan you got,
yes, yes.
which is a compliment. People who've done something 30 years have really learned something
Okay.
profound.
When I talk about, for instance, when I talk about, oh, I have been in this for 15 years or 20 years, ininterruptly, I never stopped. I never stopped teaching, or I never stopped learning. I never stopped. I always had a coven. So I've never stopped. There are other people that have not that experience. I mean, they have been initiated 40 years ago, but they have been in the circle 3 times. You know what I mean? And there's a difference between the two.
Well, it's not armchair occultism. Alexandrian Wicca is really active. It's
Well,
live it's a living.
yes.
You have to live it. You have to live it.